or her, I don't know, but lots of bear activity in Paradise Valley right now.
Recording in progress.
I don't see the meeting anymore.
I think we lost the folder back.
Oh, there you are.
No recording.
I think, yeah,
It says it's recording.
Okay.
Esme is going to also record, so
Okay.
so we don't need to.
Okay. So let Esme do it. I can click it again.
But we could hide the non-video participants before we get started here. In the if we go to stop video, that little arrow
Up here.
no, I'll come over. Yeah, right there in the settings.
Yes.
So open the settings.
Yeah.
Settings.
Okay.
And then scroll down. And we'll,
Hide non-video.
yeah, and we'll be able to see people more clearly. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Chair, I think we're ready to go. Maybe we'll just let Esme know to turn off the video there.
Oh,
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All good?
Yeah, we're good.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks everybody for joining us for the August 23rd board meeting. For those of you not in the room, we are on lovely Tuskegee Island. I'd like to thank Director Paul for having us over here. And I want to recognize that we are on the traditional, collectively, we're on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin Nation and the qathet people. We appreciate their having us. And my laptop just left me. Okay, here we go. Approval of the agenda. I have a notice of motion that I am going to add under new business. And Director Paul?
I have a notice of motion that I would like to add under new business.
Okay, so we have two notices of motion under new business.
Chair?
Yeah.
I would like to also have item 15.1 changed to a notice of motion, just to keep in line with the spirit of all the other new business items.
Okay.
For
Notice of motion.
For an upcoming committee of the whole.
Any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Director Lennox, Director Gisborne, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Adoption of the minutes of the regular board meeting July 26th, 2023. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt? Director Lennox, Director McCormick, thanks very much. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. And we have item 3.2, minutes of the special regional board meeting, August 11th, 2023. Again, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt? Director Lennox and Director McCormick. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Moving on to correspondence. Sorry. Delegations. Are there any unregistered delegations?
No.
No. Okay. And no unfinished business. So moving on to correspondence. I know we have one item pulled from here to appear under item 7, business under correspondence, but I also believe that we should have item 6.4. They're asking for a representative from the board to be on their committee. So I would suggest we move that to item 7.2 under business arising from correspondence. So moving on, item 7.1, correspondence dated August 4th, 2024 from Rebecca Bishop, UBCM Program Officer, RE, Next Generation 911 Funding. We have a recommendation in front of us. Somebody like to move the recommendation? Director Dell, thank you. Seconded by Director Lennox. Any discussion? Director Lennox?
More of a question maybe to the CEO or staff. Next Gen 911, all projects are in the report. All projects must be completed in 3 years. I think that's 2026 in this case. Are there any specific projects that have been endorsed, or are we just receiving the funding and making plans? I can't remember where we're at.
Through the chair, this is for
This funding is for us to get prepared
Okay.
for next Gen 9 report. Has nothing to do with getting the public up and lit up or anything like that.
Good.
Yeah, so this is for future projects to achieve that next level. No, sorry, I misunderstood.
Through the chair, this is for us to get our GIS, GPS, and all of that in order,
Okay.
so we can then be next gen ready to enable us to communicate to the dispatchers and what have you. This is addressing, this is doing all of our stuff internally that we're being asked of by TELUS to supply them with. Has nothing to do with lighting up the public.
Any other discussion? Seeing no other hands, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Director McCormick.
Yes, for item 7.2, I would nominate yourself, Director Brander, to serve on the committee.
Okay, thank you. I'll accept the nomination. Do we have any other nominations to serve on the committee for VIU? Did that 3 times?
No,
No, just the 1 time? Okay.
a motion to appoint you.
Okay, so just
Do we want to get it? Yeah, okay, great.
okay, so then it's just
We would record Director McCormick as
making the motion,
and Director Lennox as
seconding
seconding.
it. Any discussion around the motion? Director
Yeah.
McCormick?
Just to say that I think this is a really good move. There's so many fields now where we're scrambling to find employees. We're scrambling to find people with tickets. I think by analyzing the needs of the workforce and the workplace, we're going to have much better programs that are really geared to solving some of the problems that we're currently facing. So I think it's great that they're actually making this initiative happen, and hopefully they'll act on whatever direction that they get.
Yeah, yeah. I look forward to it. I got 2 kids that are of the age that they're considering what to do after high school, so it'll be interesting for me to be on the committee as well.
Oh yeah.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Chair's report, director's report. I'll start off my chair's report. It is pretty short. On three different occasions this month, I met online with chairs, mayors, CAOs across the province concerning the wildfire and drought situations. And again, touch wood, right now we're relatively lucky in our area that we've been able to avoid a lot of it, but it brings it home when you hear about all the suffering that is going on in other parts of the province. So I'm just going to say, let's all remain vigilant, and hopefully we can avoid some of the problems that they are experiencing. I believe these phone calls or these Zoom calls are going to go on for until the problem is alleviated. The only other thing I can report this month regarding the chair's position is on August 8th, I met with Rod Dalziel, who is a representative of BC Parks, and I met for 2 conditions primarily. One, to discuss the condition of the boat ramp at Sultry Bay, and I also mentioned this poor state of the trail at Inland Lake. And even though I brought with me a copy of qathet Living that did an extensive article on the trail, I was going to give it to him, and he said somebody on the ferry had already given him one that morning, so he is well aware of the situation. I did share personal stories. I have a good friend who is in a wheelchair, and he has small children. That's one place that he would like to be able to take them, but because of the current situation in the state, it's not possible for him to do so. So he wasn't obviously able to make any promises at the time, but I'm just hoping that this advocacy eventually leads to some improvements being made. We'll see. Director's report also was pretty quiet. A lot of the stuff that normally happens down in Area C, a lot of it surrounding the Lund Community Hall or the Kelly Creek Community School Association. They're on summer break, so it slows down quite a bit. But we did have a Donkersley Beach neighborhood block party, so it was really nice to get together with the neighbors, and I'm appreciative of the people who put that on. The next night, there was a South of Town neighborhood get together at Palm Beach. It was very similar to the one prior to it, but was just drawing from a larger crowd. Other than that, I just want to say now that September is starting up, a lot of the activities that Lang Bay Hall is known for are kicking back into gear again. So we are shifting gear from summer activities into fall and winter activities. Let's start over here, Director McCormick.
Sure, thank you, Chair. And before I begin reviewing the items that I'm going to raise, I'd like to extend a thank you to our operational services staff for getting the life jacket station, the Kids Don't Float station installed in the park. And Ms. Jones, I think you have a photo to show that I took 2 days ago.
I do, Director McCormick, but I'm unable to share it because
Okay.
I'm not doing the.
All right, well, at some point, you know, it can be circulated perhaps to directors. And I know it took a bit of juggling with their staff time, which was already committed when this project came along, but Patrick Devereaux was able to work it in. So I'm very appreciative of that. And that's where young kids can come and take life jackets. And I was chatting with the police officer that brought it forward, and he said that in the first 3 weeks, no life jackets had gone missing and that they were all being well used. So that's, you know, it's Texada, right? We don't have crime, or very little anyway. So back to my regular report. On the 28th of July, I attended the retirement party for our not quite yet retired Dr. Kevin Black, who's been the resident physician on Texada for probably close to 30 years. He was scheduled to retire at the end of August. Because we've not been able to find a replacement for him, he's agreed to stay on until the end of June of next year. So while we celebrated his retirement with an island-wide roast, I think he announced that he was staying just so that he could have another roast next spring by the time he does retire. So anyway, that was Dr. Black. He's an amazing guy. On the 30th of July was the fly-in on Texada. There was an aerospace camp in the week leading up to that, and that's probably the only camp of its kind for kids from 12 to, I guess, 18, and it teaches them the principles of avionics. They have a flight simulator that they learn to fly. They all go up in a plane with a registered pilot, and it's quite an amazing experience. The fly-in was kind of low-key this year. Not a lot of special things happening, like the synchronized aerobatics and that kind of stuff. So we'll see what happens next year. But the aerospace camp was sold out. So on the 1st of August, and I will move it along quickly, I attended probably the same virtual update that you did, share regarding the forest fire management in BC, and these will be on a regular basis. But I noted concerns that people raised about the removal of hog fuels that are left behind after an area has been forested. Also concerns about logging in the watersheds, which others are experiencing, and about evacuation routes, which are not nearly well established as ours are. So kudos to our emergency management team. So on the 5th and 6th of August, there was a Roots and Blues Festival. I was, teamed up to do security for one of those sessions, and it was an absolutely great weekend, and very, very well. Probably the best attendance we've ever had. I don't have the exact number. On the 6th and 7th was the library's annual book sale. Again, the long weekend in August brought a lot of people out, and they cleared out a lot of books, which I'm sure they're happy to see the end of. So on the 16th of August, I attended the regular meeting of the Venanda Improvement District. And I went there to hear a presentation from our chief paramedic, Alan McIsaac, who was talking about changes in the way paramedics their services are being delivered in rural communities. And Texada is one of the communities that is affected by these changes. He was concerned that with the changes, it will mean a rollout time, which is from the time they get the call to the time they're on the road. Now that's about 90 seconds, and they're afraid that could go up as high as 10 minutes, which will really put people's lives at risk. And so he's raising concerns about that and is seeking input from the local government, the improvement districts, and I was invited to attend as well. And you'll be speaking to Gillies Bay as well. So we'll see what happens as that unfolds. On the 20th, which was Sunday, was our Run the Rock marathon, and half marathon and 8K walk. 65 runners were registered to attend. So that isn't a record, but it's certainly up there. And I think the forest fire smoke kept a few people indoors. I don't think all 65 actually competed, but it was certainly a great day. We did our aid station that we always do out in the gravel pit, and had a fun time doing it. So, and I want to conclude with two other things that weren't actually events, but are certainly of note. One was the Perseus meteor shower, which took place and is still taking place to an extent this year, which was very visible from Texada. The skies were clear, the moon was gone, and it was a perfect viewing night. But the more important to me is a number of whale sightings we have had, such as the ones that we had on our trip over here today. There are whales, I would say, at least 2 to 3 times a week, sighted on Texada, and that is just such great news to see them coming back the way they have been. So yeah, good news, and thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Yeah, I shared that notice about the Kids Don't Float initiative on my Facebook page that goes around, and I think I got more positive comments about that than I have about any other thing that I've placed up there in the last 5 years. So yeah, a lot of support. Yeah, really well.
Yes, and really well received on the island, and at the park, of course. You've got people who don't necessarily buy, life jackets as their kids grow and change and age quickly. So having those there, and there's a range in sizes from little tiny ones up to, like a teenager would wear. And we're really happy to have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's really positive. Bertelia.
Thank you, Chair. So my report doesn't include too much. I participated in Lundays and went to the gazebo and listened to the music and saw what they had going on there with the face painting and the various food vendors and some activities for the children. That was really awesome. Also attended Blackberry Fest street party. It was super well attended. Couldn't count all the people, but I'd say somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 people at that street festival. So super popular, really well done, peaceful. Everybody had a great time. Live music all up and down the street. So it was just a really good example of how well our community does festivals. Mm-hmm. It's, you can't get that kind of harmony and implementation the way we do it everywhere. The whole street's set up, the vendors there, everybody attends, everybody goes home, gets cleaned up. It's all just so well done. I also met with our hospital manager, or what she calls herself, the director of the hospital. And we had a discussion about follow-up from the previous meeting that West Ratepayers had attended. She had a letter that she sent out and was published through the Westview Ratepayers Facebook page, if people are interested in that letter. She indicated that the 2017 survey, which was for satisfaction of clients in the Willingdon Creek facility, was going to be updated probably within the next year, and so that to look out for that survey. We discussed a little bit about the overcapacity at our hospital being almost constant and permanent, and she discussed how site and also our long-term care facilities being not having enough beds for the need of our community. And she said that site master planning addresses the facilities and what they're used for and how the space is used and whether we need more space or construction and all of that stuff. And we are second on the list within Vancouver Coastal Health. So she's not sure timing because they have to finish the site master planning for, I think it was the North Shore first. And then we were next on that list of receiving site master planning for future changes. I talked about the hospital board being involved in that, and she indicated that she thought that the Vancouver Coastal intended to extend an invitation to our hospital board to attend one of their meetings. And talk about things that were relevant to our area. So I was very happy to hear that. There would be, as coming up also, a clinical and service deliver planning process, which includes public engagement. Didn't get a timing on that one either. She thought within the next 2 to 5, not sure, but that's a comprehensive planning process that would have public engagement part to it. So that was the end of our discussions on that part for that meeting. So that's what I've been up to.
Okay, thanks for reminding me about Blackberry Fest. I actually ran into you down there. It is a really neat event.
So I'll play there.
Yes, really neat event. And it's a real special way for the community to come together. Go up to the screen, Director Gisborne.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll try and be quick. On the 3rd of August, I attended the Agricultural Advisory Committee to discuss the proposal for ALR removal on the Texada housing project. Other than that, things have been mostly quiet out in Area B. With that being said, I'm sure everyone's been seeing all the, the comments and stuff being driven around bear activity within the city of Powell River. So people are being very vigilant now in the city of Powell River about keeping, their garbage locked up and all that kind of stuff. The bad side of that is we're actually seeing increased bear activity outside the city limits, out in Area B. I've had a few people ask me, what can be done. Really, it's essentially, you can call the conservation officer, you can try and secure what you have. However, there is quite a bit of farms out here, and I know that there's a number of people that are probably just waiting for either the 1st of September or the 9th or 10th of September. Because it goes in cycles. It's unfortunate, and there was also the recent announcement that the Haywire Bay campground is closed as of today, which I shared on social media. So hopefully this is a reminder to folks that, keeping your stuff secured from bears is not just in the summer. It's kind of a year-round activity, because the bears that, at least I've even seen out here, they're interested in cars, they're interested in structures. They're not the bears coming down from the mountains. They're habitual. They're used to being in an urban environment, and it's really unfortunate to see that behavior. With that, that's my director's report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Haywire Bay closure. It's really unfortunate that we had to take that step, but we have to make sure we keep the public safe. Director Lennox.
Thank you, Chair. I always think to myself, not too much happened in the last month. And then I start writing things down, and my opinion of myself changes. I want to thank staff, Director Fall, and the community here on Muskegon for having us. I've been wanting to come here my whole life. So now that's a bucket list. But I will be back. Beautiful, and it's been nice to see some of the amenities on the island. Again, I get a lot of contact from my constituents in Area A, which is a good thing. They're letting me know what's going on. ASIC, very active lately on Savory, working towards some different objectives around traffic studies, so they were able to borrow the traffic counter from the city of Powell River. Really appreciate all the communication and cooperation there. They're going to take 2 stabs at it over this year, and obviously do some comparisons, and they're working on community consultation in a number of areas. So good to hear them getting going. Related note, CIMAC is the Marine Advisory Committee on Savory, and again, talking to lots of folks who I know personally and having coffee with them, and really trying to make sure that marine facility is up to snuff. We've got a motion here on our agenda that will help with that and the safety of that venue. We've had some improvements over there with RCMP going over on the long weekend in August, which was well received by the community. I phoned Staff Sergeant Weave and thanked him for that effort and the people that were involved. We had people in the community offer up a place for the officers to stay so that they could spell each other off. And so he appreciated that reaching out, and actually said it was pretty quiet, but that just proves the point, right? So if people know that you're checking and that there's a presence there, and that there's some expectations of safety and security, that's exactly what happened. So that was a good thing. I also had to touch on sort of more problematic area with the staff sergeant about highway safety. And you know, in the Lund area, especially right in the village of Lund, with all the parking issues that we have, and you know, pedestrians and people going about, they're rushing to get their business conducted. It's been a series of near misses on the road. People are driving too fast, et cetera, et cetera. And so we don't really see too much of an RCMP presence north of town. Some people like it that way, but you know, if the officers are seen, then it sends a message. And so we had a little discussion about that. He repeated what we've heard from the RCMP many times: calls for service matter. So citizens are wanting those services. They think there's hazards, risks. They're encouraged to call because then the staff sergeant can advocate for more resources. So it's the classic, if nothing's said, then they think everything's fine. So that was a good discussion. We'll keep working on that, keep working with MOTI on some solutions. I mean, a speed sign, I think, sometimes those awareness, those are things we're working on, and maybe some traffic calming, but we'll keep working with MOTI. And this year, a young yearling, you know, we get to love our deer in these communities. I'm sure this community is the same. A young yearling was struck and killed right by the community center, and it really got people pissed off. I'm just going to use the vernacular, and they started calling me. And so obviously we asked them to call the appropriate contacts, but we really need to advocate for that. And it could have been a young child or worse, right? So a lot of activity about that. Recent earthworks on some of the properties in the area near potential riparian areas, again, facilitating that with their appropriate agencies. I really appreciate staff has helped me out on that to, you know, not just be my little voice telling people, oh, this is who you know, it's almost like you're avoiding the topic, but if we give them all the information, that's a way better way. So I really appreciate staff helping in that. So I know we've been talking about LIFT lately and some of the community impacts, both at the resource center and the housing unit in town. And I've had quite a bit of outreach from my citizens about the harmful sort of, you know, antisocial behavior that's gone on. Somebody I've known for most of my life, a local business operator, was severely impacted recently with another theft to his business in town, basically destroyed his business, and he may not recover. It was a very interesting discussion, and it really made me realize people are doing their best to come up with solutions for, you know, harm reduction, whatever avenue that you're thinking of. And this particular person, I really appreciated that they're trying to do it from the grassroots level. They're meeting with people that are in crises and meeting with LIFT and meeting with other agencies that are responsible and just trying to come up with solutions. So I think you're going to hear more about it in the community. It's been through social media. There's actions that are being taken at the street level, and maybe that's just another tool that we need to help people with, because, you know, it's tough out there and people are being impacted greatly by some of the situations on our streets. So I'll continue to help out as best I can there. And then some of the points around wildfires, obviously we're paying attention, all of us, to that. Some good comments here from I think it was the deputy chief of the fire department about resiliency and you know, our communities being able to take care of ourselves, leverage our communities and our neighbors about resources, and, you know, until that help comes from other levels. So really appreciated that. I've been through communities on the coast, Port Alberni recently, where that highway and the fire that impacted their evacuation route you were talking about greatly impacts these communities. And if that were to happen to us, you know, life changes severely. So we met with the mayor over there from my employer, but I was able to speak sort of in terms of regional district and city issues with the mayor of Port Alberni, and it may come up at UBCM, some motions to really support a better process for Emergency Management BC and these other agencies to be a little bit more responsive and timely. And we're heading to the Clean Shores Level 1 training tomorrow on Savory. That'll be cool to learn what that course involves, and looking forward to that. And then my last note is fishing is still very good. So we got to end on a positive note, right? So if anybody wants to go fishing, come over to London and take you.
Great, thanks for the report. You did have quite a busy month.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to hear things are going fairly well over on Slavery, and I agree with you. Driving, or I've ridden my bike through London as well, and all those cars parked both sides. You gotta be careful. Yeah.
Well, that area he's speaking of where the deer got hit is the community center where children go, and it's a 30 zone.
Right.
So, yeah.
People should be going slow through there.
There should be no hitting of anything in a 30 zone.
You're right. That's a good point. Yeah, good point.
Well, having lots of experience with deer, which are rampant on Texas, sometimes you can't avoid them. We've had one situation where we're going at 80 clicks and a deer runs out of the woods and smacks right into the side of our vehicle, which is moving at 80 clicks an hour. So the deer are often to blame as much as the people. They run right in front of you with no chance to stop, and at least the ones on Texada do. So it's what you get when you don't have predators. So
right. Director Doubt.
Yeah, what can I say? On August 11th, Councillor Elliott and I went to the Pride flag raising in the city of Fall River for Pride Week. Something I think that's important about making sure that everybody in the community feels safe and included, particularly since we have previously had a flag raising of the Pride flag in June, and the flag had been stolen from the city's flagpole overnight. So the city will be issuing a letter to the editor, I guess, about that pretty soon. I went to the Blackberry Festival along with what seemed to me like thousands of others, and it's a beautifully simple festival. There's food, there's music, and your neighbors, and you can walk from one end of Marine Drive to the other and see just about everybody in town. And you know, I could count the number of people I know that I didn't see on one hand, and everybody else, people you haven't seen for a year or sometimes two because of COVID. It's a great festival and a great way to bring people together. It's going to be nice if we could do that every week. You could shut the highway down, slow down, and be a little bit safer, as people should be in one when they're driving through there. I also went to the bathtub races on the weekend, which is a new thing for Fall River. There's about 7 bathtubs racing around like crazy in Gibson's Beach. And just to finish it all off, a couple of the bathtubs ended up upside down, using rescue boats. You know, Gibson's Beach was a great kind of amphitheater to do that. There were not a lot of other people there. It was maybe 40 or 50 people brought their lawn chairs out to watch it. It was an interesting afternoon. I hope they can build that up. And I agree with Director Lennox about the traffic in London. When you had cars parked both sides of the street for a mile out of town, basically from the dock up to about a mile away from the dock, and cars parked on both sides of the road, some of them on the road, some of them a little bit off the road, and people going too fast, just in too big a hurry to get from the ferry to Savory Island, or from Savory Island back to the ferry, to worry about wildlife on the road and to worry about people on the road. And I think, you know, a little bit more enforcement would be good. But it's been a good summer, and I think we're going to get down to busier times in the near future.
Thanks very much. Thanks for mentioning the Pride Week. I was actually out of town for a lot of it, so I missed some of the activities, but it sounds like there's a lot of fun to be had. I know they had a drag queen reading at the library for the kids that was a popular event. And the bathtub races, I'm gonna have to look into that next year, hopefully, to do it again, because I didn't even know
it was, you know, I think they had about 4 or 8 by 10 posters around town, so it was hard to recognize it was going on.
Okay.
A few of the diehards were there, and I'd encourage everybody to go next year.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see that one.
It's a fun couple of hours.
Director Fall, you got the floor on your home turf now. So,
Chair,
let us know what you got.
I'll start by thanking staff for organizing this meeting on the PD. A lot goes into getting everyone here, getting it set up, and all the technology, and in particular, Sherry Lawson, Esme Sturton, and our corporate officer, Michelle Jones. It's a lot of work, and I think it's really nice, and I think for the board to be here to see, and senior staff to see the ski and what some of the services we have here. And I'd also like to thank everyone who traveled to the ski. It's a whole day for you, and I think I really appreciate it, and I think Gavin appreciates it. And I'd like to also call out a thanks to Darcy Pascal, our deputy fire chief / emergency coordinator / resort society board member, who not only drove people up here but gave tours of various bits and pieces around here. To Mark Bottomley, our waste manager, who showed up when he was intending to go over with a recycling run, but he decided to help him, but he thought it would be better, and it was very nice of him to open up the recycling depot. And for Ian Rusconi, the health center administrator, who opened up the doors, but also showed some of us into the back there and around the services around here. So it was really good. I was really happy to hear the comments from Director McCormick on the kids don't float. And for people who don't know what that means, that's basically a stand on a dock with life jackets for kids, and they're just there. People take them, they use them. Make sure your kids have life jackets. So it's something that could be put in. It's something that could be on our dock if we wanted. The RCMP said it's possible, and I got a contact, but it'd be nice to see how it works on Pixate at first for a year or two, and it just, and if jackets go missing, great, they're for kids and they replace them. So it's not a big deal. It's just pick them up, use them, keep your kids floating. The big issue on Lasqueti for the last few weeks has been the ferry. My alternate director, Garside, is sitting here. She's also the chair of the Ferry Advisory Committee, so she will know.
Not a few weeks, it's a few months.
Few months, okay. But we met 3 times in August, and prior to that as well, she's on it, on the ball with it. And so there's a lot of issues. There's been a huge turnover in the ferry crew. There's been technical issues. There's been canceled runs. There's been runs with fewer passengers. Many issues, and on top of all the overflows. Smaller ferry on long weekends. Which means overflows. And so that increases anxiety, and then increases the stress, and increases the number of crew decide to resign, and so on. So it spiraling into a mess. And so the Ferry Advisory Committee has been meeting a lot, talking about actions. And one of the reasons it's relevant for us is that one of the actions the Ferry Advisory Committee will be taking will be to start communicating with BC Ferries more. And there's a high chance that a letter will be coming our way to ask for support. So you'll see that. It's just a heads up. There will almost certainly be a letter coming to us in the next month or so. I attended this this fire update from the province, and it's really good. You can look at it afterwards as well. So hearing the lowdown across the province, seeing communities really heavily impacted, especially in the last few weeks, but over the whole summer. I've been getting lots of calls from people on the island. They see the fires in Kelowna and the fires up in the Northwest Territories, and then they contact me and others and say, well, what do we do about this evacuations? And I say, well, what can we do? So I think we need, on this island, and I've been talking with Darcy Pascal, our emergency coordinator, about some communications that can happen, because people need more information and there's going to be more action. I think people are really concerned about fires. And vigilant. I mean, on Lasqueti, we go through this every year, but I think this year people are really a bit on edge when you don't have precipitation. So some concerns about how to be a bit more prepared and how to communicate if something happens. In last week, I participated in this open house for what's called a microboard. I'm on the microboard called My Oceanside Chocolate Home Association from MOCA. And it's for these microboards are set up for people who have disabilities, and they're little societies that are there to help ensure that person can continue to live where they live and have good quality of life. And the reason I'm raising this is because we're on Lasqueti and we're here at the health center. We see services for people who have health needs. We see services for elder cottages and people who have some vulnerabilities. The respite suite that is for people recovering. And this is just another example of the kind of thing that we're trying to, it happens in a lot of communities, but something that's happening to help someone live on Lasqueti who lives here and wants to continue living here but needs help. So she lives in an accessible house and with her parents, and there's assistance from Community Living BC, but it's an ongoing challenge. So it's beautiful and it's a lovely thing, but it's also challenges because of access and travel, and especially during COVID and so on. So it's a lot of things happening on Lasqueti to help. We're at a smaller scale, but to help people live the life and take care of those who are in our community. And to end on a bit of a positive note, there's been a lot of summer events. A week and a half ago, there was a Lasqueti's Got Talent show. BC Day weekend, the firefighters picnic was held just around the corner here. It's a very big event. It's one of the biggest of the year. hundreds of people show up, 300 or 400, and music and food and people get together. A lot like that Blackberry festival that Dr. Dout was talking about. And it's very, very positive. And people are very happy to be able to get together. And I'll just end by saying the fall fair, which seemed to have been on the rocks, it seems to be happening. So mid-September, there will be a fall fair. That will be something very fun for people. And I'll end there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. This is my first opportunity to do one of these on-the-road board meetings because we had COVID and stuff like that. I think it's a really neat opportunity for the rest of us to kind of see the whole area we represent. It's really nice to get here to Mesquite. And we're going to be heading off to Texada next year. So Great. McCormick will be there to show us around. Moving on to our consent agenda. Opportunity here for anybody to remove items from the consent agenda. I'm going to start it off. I'd like to remove item 10.1. So, do we have any others that people wish to have removed from the consent agenda? No hands. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended? Director Saul, Director McCormick. Thanks. Director Paul, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to, just for people in the public to know, so what the items on the consent agenda have already been discussed in committees and are included if the committees voted unanimously. So they're items that the committees voted unanimously on, and so if they are adopted in the consent agenda unanimously, if this motion passes unanimously, which it needs to, then it's an efficient way to move things along that have general consensus. So if there's any discussion, they get pulled out, which has happened. So.
Okay, thank you for the clarification of that. I appreciate that. Any other discussion concerning the consent agenda? So none. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. So moving on to 11.1, which was the previous 10.1. I am not prepared at this point to change the recommendation, but if somebody would like to move the recommendation and second it,
I'll move the motion that's in the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Director Gisborne, seconded by Director Elliott. And since I brought this one back, I guess I'll open the discussion concerning it. I just wanted to revisit this one again because I kind of feel that I didn't have a full picture. I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask Ms. Rodden about it. I'm going to start off by just reading one paragraph from the report. So it says, West Coast Fish Culture, Lloyd's Lake Limited, has made an application at the request of the province to remedy unauthorized infrastructure that is sitting off the approved tenure area located on Lois Lake. The Ministry of Forest staff advised the company to complete an application for tenure amendment so the site can be in compliance with the province. So my question about this statement is the purpose of the tenure amendment to increase or modify the tenure area so that the unauthorized infrastructure currently sitting off of approved tenure area can be made legal? I hope that Ms. Ron understands what I'm trying to ask. So go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So the current infrastructure being used is outside of the water tenure area and the management plan that was approved in 2015. And if you have the agenda in front of you, on page 10 of the staff report, there is a map that shows the tenure area outlined in red. And on that map, you can see between the tenure area and the yellow star on the map, you can see in the water, that is aquaculture infrastructure. So that's the infrastructure that's sitting outside the tenure area. So the applicant was asked by Ministry of Forests or the West Coast Fish Culture was asked by Ministry of Forest to apply for amendment so that their water tenure can remain in good standing And so they've requested this amendment application so that the infrastructure can operate on the existing tenure, so be moved to within the existing tenure area under an updated management plan.
Okay, so I'm kind of confused then. If the goal is to take the infrastructure that is not in the tenure and move it into the tenure, why are we amending the tenure? Because it seems like the tenure is remaining the same. That's why I get confused.
Okay, so if you turn to the next page in the staff report, page 11 of 22, you'll see another map image that is part of the application. And I realize it leaves something to be desired in terms of clarity, but the map there shows the tenure area, which is the same as the red outline on page 10. And the dark black is all of the infrastructure lined up within that tenure area. And that's not currently what it looks like on page 10. There's only a bit of the infrastructure within the tenure area and the rest is outside. So the map image on page 11 shows what in that would be the amended tenure. So the outer boundary is not changing. It's just the infrastructure within that boundary is increasing.
Okay. All right, so it's not expanding beyond what was the tenure area for the 2015 agreement.
Correct.
Okay. I understand that now. The second question is, I'm wondering if you can give some kind of description as to what, if you know, what other steps are being taken by other ministries, because basically there's two things that I don't want to do, or I think this board doesn't want to do. We don't want to be a fly in the ointment that potentially derails a larger plan that the provincial government has to bring this thing back into order. But I also don't think we want to be a local government that just puts their head in the sand and ignores a bad situation and just, you know, rubber stamps it and allows it to go through. So if you could kind of describe what the bigger picture is and show how we play a part in it. Like, I don't want our denial of this request to cause problems later on that will ultimately derail the larger picture, the larger plan. Hope I made that clear.
Through the chair. As was discussed at the committee of the whole meeting, there are a number of compliance issues that West Coast Fish Culture is working through. There are compliance issues related to their land-based infrastructure. So on page 10 of the report where the yellow star is, that's the land-based infrastructure. And so there are some compliance issues they're working through related to that infrastructure and impacts on water quality. And that is under the jurisdiction of the Provincial Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. There are also some licensing issues related to the farming of the fish, which are under the authority of the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And staff have reached out to the various agencies since the committee meeting to develop a better understanding of what the status of those compliance issues are. And my understanding is that West Coast Fish Culture Limited is currently working with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to bring their operations into compliance with provincial and federal legislation and regulations. My understanding is they want to remain a viable business in the Qathet region. And the referral of their aquaculture use amendment application is only one step towards bringing their operations into compliance. However, I have been assured by the other agencies that they are also working with the company. And that's my understanding at this point in time. I don't believe there's going to be any referrals for the other compliance issues. They don't trigger referrals to local government. And but this referral is one step along the way to working their way into compliance.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Do we have any other questions or just matters to discuss? Director Gisborne.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just making sure my mic is on. Yeah, this is something that I've given a lot of thought to. Myself, I'm a fan of aquaculture. I'm a fan of raising fish. I remember my dad years ago would raise trout. But we also have to take a look at the bigger picture here. Our Area B and Area C OCPs designate Lois Lake as a potential water source for the south of town community in the future. And what we've seen with this operation is a lack of compliance on so many fronts. And I thank our staff for reaching out to the provincial and federal government ministries to find out just how far out of compliance and which areas they're kind of all over the place. And seeing the numbers and even seeing what's been going on in like provincial newspapers reporting on what's been going on out here. I think they got to go a long way to get back into compliance, and seeing the numbers of what pollutants was going into the lake from the January report has me really concerned, because if we do move forward with developing the Lois Lake water source and the water is being polluted by this activity, like that's going to cost us. That's going to cost the community. And they're so far out of compliance in so many aspects that this really, to me, looks like we've ignored the rules. We've gone and just done what we wanted. And now that we're actually, caught, it's okay. We're asking for forgiveness rather than permission. And this is a big operation. And I know it has an impact, but we kind of got to send a message that we don't support that. We don't support that kind of activity in our area. So I am in favor of the motion on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other hands up? Dr. McCormick.
Yeah, I also support the motion that's on the agenda. I'm not a fan of fish farming, except if it's completely contained on land. This is not, because it's a potential drinking water source, and it's a source of great recreation in our area. I know they provide jobs, and jobs are important, and people's employment is important, but I'm sorry, I can't support this kind of operation. And that's why, if we're going to put a roadblock up in front of their continued existence, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, thanks very much. I don't see any other hands at this time. I'm just going to make one more comment. You mentioned the employment created by the fish farm. I do value that. I also do value the employment created for businesses that support the fish farm. So I think I'm willing to support the original staff recommendation and put faith in the governments at the provincial and federal levels to get everything in line. So if this motion fails, I'd be prepared to make one to go back to the original staff recommendation. But if there's no other discussion at this point, we'll call the question. All in favor? We got 3 in favor. All opposed? 2 opposed. So we have 2.
One clarification. It says
No,
I don't get the vote.
A, B, C, and D.
Oh, right. What am I doing?
Don't count them.
Sorry.
A limited number of elements.
You did. You're right. And A, B, C, and D. So where are we at then?
Into the
It's
hand
what's just call the question again now.
It's interesting, but I don't get the vote.
Okay, so the motion in front of us that says do not support it. So all in favor of that motion. 3 opposed, myself, and motion carries. Okay. Moving on to the next item, which is down to the consent agenda. And 12.1 resolution, London Water Works District receiver. A recommendation in front of us. Somebody who's willing to use that. All directors on wicked page. Director McCormick, thank you. Seconded by Director Paul. Any discussion? Director Lennox.
Yeah, obviously we've had a lot of discussion on this matter at committee, and I appreciate CAO, the recent information as it comes in is being provided in a timely manner. Your comments about openness, transparency are well received, so thank you for that. I do understand the concerns that are raised especially about resources. I guess just to keep it simple without rehashing the points that I made previously, because we don't need to do that, the points that were raised recently about some of the answers we got from the province about timelines and how long these things take to affect. The simple fact is that middle column that says who has to do that work, the QRD is identified in almost every one of those. So, I understand, but I do think that this is our bailiwick, and I'm voting against this.
Any other comments at this point? Director Elliott?
I'm gonna vote in favor of the motion, and my understanding and reasoning for doing so is that all of the things that are required for the regional district to do for conversion, we will continue to do, and this vote won't impact that at all. The additional resources provided for having a separate, what's the name of the person? Receiver. Helps the overall process, as in the overall process will have more resources that way. There are some strategic advantages to having the receiver separate from the QRD in politically trying to motivate the province to make a decision on that grant. I think that the conversion of the Lund Waterworks would be helped by having a separate receiver, and that's my goal, is to help Lund Waterworks get to conversion and have a successful grant applied, and not perpetuate a process where the QRD prematurely becomes the receiver, and then the province then we have less leverage that way, is what I think. And so I'm going to vote in favor.
Thanks very much. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? 2 opposed. Thank you very much. Motion carries. Item 13.1 bylaws. Texada Island Community Watershed Zoning Bylaw number 582, 2022. Director McCarr, would you like to read that?
Yes, that the board give third reading of Texada Island Community Watershed Zoning Bylaw number 582, 2022.
Seconded by Dr. Lennox. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. This is ACCD unweighted vote, by the way. Director McCormick.
Thank you. And that the board adopt Texada Island Community Watershed Zoning Bylaw number 582, 2022.
Seconded Director Lennox. Any discussion? None, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thanks very much. We have nothing under reports. New business. We've got 15.1 and There's a notice of motion, Director Gizmo, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I'd put this forward as a notice of motion. Thank you, Chair, for bringing this up with the provincial government about the provincial park up at Inland Lake that's in Area B. There, of course, I'm sure most people have seen the article. So this motion is, let's discuss it at Committee of the Whole when, we're a little bit more situated, and that's what discussion for committee is. And one of the thoughts with this notice of motion is I think about the Paradise Exhibition Park, which I believe is provincial government and then leased to the regional district. So I know that the Inland Lake is a huge provincial park, and this notice of motion for discussion at coming up Committee of the Whole would be to discuss looking at a smaller portion of it. At the time when we discuss it, I would also be in favor of making that conditional that the province bring it back up to the standard that it was when the community gave it to them about 20 years ago. But that's my notice of motion, and I look forward to discuss that at Committee of the Whole.
Great, thank you very much. Item 15.2, that goes to Director McCormick.
Yep, thank you, Chair, and that is in response to issues that we've discussed around this table regarding LIFT and the impacts of their services. So that will be coming to Committee of the Whole.
Okay, great.
September.
I'm giving notice now that I'm going to be making a motion at the September Committee of the Whole regarding proposed changes to the board and committee meeting schedules for the remainder of 2023. And Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to make a notice of motion that I'll bring forward a motion to request staff for a report regarding proposed revisions to the QRD financial assistance process to the September Finance Committee meeting, and specific wording will follow. I have a draft, but I will refine it. It will be on the agenda.
Perfect. We've got all sorts of interesting things happening in September. Yes. So we're up to question period. I don't know if we have the press on the line or if anybody present here has questions. Yeah. Mr. Galinsky, do you have any questions? No. I'm taking that as a no. Seeing no other questions, sorry. I asked, I didn't see any hands go up. But, we are now going into an in-camera session. So can I get somebody to read that motion, please? Go for it.
I move that the board move in camera and that the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds of the subject matter to be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under section 91. C, labor relations or other employee relations. L, discussions with regional district officers, employees respecting regional district objectives, measures and progress reports for the purpose of preparing an annual report under section 98, the annual general regional district report, and the consideration of whether a board meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2.
Seconded by Mr. Elliott. Thank you very much. Any discussion? See none, all in favor? None opposed? Motion carries. We're going in camera.
Can we get a 5-minute break real quick?
Sure, go for it.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
we've done such a good point in digital. I'm gonna get most of it back, but I'm keeping a copy of the strategic file since you printed it anyway, so I have it.
That's a good idea. Thanks for reminding me of that. I like to have these in my cupboard sometimes. Right?
Well, I wouldn't have printed it as to have one,
Yeah,
since they're.
But I like the trail
Thank you,
plan.
Chair. We're
too.
back in session. Oh, yeah, we have everyone here.
Are we back in session yet?
It looks like yes, he must have let them all.
She did, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. We would like to report, the board advisory report on the follow. The board adopted the qathet Regional District Flexible Work Arrangement Policy, and the board received information pertaining to a WorkSafe BC inspection visit to the Skeety Island Fire Hall. We've reached the end of our agenda, so I declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks very much, everybody. It's been a great meeting to the Skeety.
Well done.
Have a good day, everyone. And my apologies, I couldn't make it. I really wanted to, but with something 600 pounds.
You got time for more tours.
Yeah, we did good today, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, have a good day. Bye.
Bye.